So Baldur's Gate 3 is getting its own HBO TV series, and the showrunner will be Craig Mazin, who was the showrunner or co-showrunner of The Last of Us show, as well as Chernobyl on HBO before that. So this comes courtesy of Deadline, who says, a television adaptation of the acclaimed game set in the D&D universe is in development at HBO, and interestingly, will be a continuation of the story from the Baldur's Gate 3 game. The TV show will reportedly take place after the events of the game and follow the characters players grew to love over time as they grapple with the aftermath of its world-changing ending. The series will be helmed by Craig Mazin, no stranger to adapting video games to live action following his work co-creating The Last of Us with Neil Druckmann. A huge fan of Baldur's Gate 3, Mazin told Deadline that, quote, after putting nearly 1,000 hours into the incredible world of Baldur's Gate 3, it is a dream come true to be able to continue the story that Larian and Wizards of the Coast created. I am a devoted fan of D&D and the brilliant way that Sven Vinke, and his gifted team adapted it. I can't wait to help bring Baldur's Gate and all of its incredible characters to life with as much respect and love as we can. And I'm deeply grateful to Gabe Morano and his team at Hasbro for entrusting me with this incredibly important property. So that leads us to an interesting place. Miranda, you were a Baldur's Gate player, if I recall correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
I actually finished my first run in like a week and a half. It was like 100 hours. We just no life. It was great. Full gremlin mode. And we recently, I've been playing with my partner, and we recently started a new campaign. So it's kind of exciting to dip back into it. My thoughts on this are that what made Baldur's Gate 3 special, and I mentioned this on Blue Sky, is not actually the story or the companions. I feel bad because I know some people really love the companions. I don't like most of them fine, but we're not talking about BioWare, golden era of Mass Effect level companions. They're just
no
not.
Garrus.
Yeah, they're just not memorable in that way. I think this is maybe an early. Maybe this is an early version of Baldur's Gate. I'm looking at this. I think this actually is, which is kind of funny. But since. And that's maybe a different discussion about the early access for Baldur's Gate 3 having been kind of a weird development pipeline for it. Anyway, the thing that made that special is what I was getting to, is playing it. Is your choices, your impact, the paths, the actual fun of plotting your next move, how you're building your characters, how you're getting all these interactions to work. That is, I think, what is special about Baldur's Gate 3, not its story. Its story is it's totally fine. It's totally serviceable. The characters, I think most of them have just fine stories also. I think some of the problem is that they feel very isolated. And once you kind of get done with certain parts of it, that character might as well just not even be there anymore. That's kind of how it felt. And I think that might have been a bit of its issue with the early access. But again, it's hard to say. So overall, do I care about a story where it's a continuation of the main game? I think I'm more interested in that than them trying to do anything else with it, just because it kind of leaves it in a messy spot. And I think a lot of the side characters have stories that could be looked into more to make them more interesting. So I'm curious about it. And I think, although I'm a Last of Us hater. I'm notoriously known as that.
The game or the show or both?
The game. I do not like that game for a lot of reasons. And I respect that people do enjoy it. I think the show, though, was a better version of that game. And I think there are some things they did, and they took characters to be more interesting and really honed in on those stories, at least in the first season. I didn't watch the second season. But that being said, that gives me some hope that this, whatever it may be, could actually be really interesting. If they dig into making these characters more special, really giving them the spotlight and showcasing what's changed with them or how they want to continue on. There are a few different plot lines. It's kind of all right, and we're done. Shadowheart, we don't need to go back to her ever again. If you play through this game, you don't. There's nothing to say there. And that's a problem, right? There are some of these characters where they had these these central storylines, it's like you're just kind of a vehicle to get to this place, and not necessarily that your story really mattered all that much. Like, at least to me. Sorry if you love Shadowheart. She's fine. She's fine. Anyway, so that's kind of what I'm thinking about. I know some of the concern around this show was that Larian is not directly involved in the development of this. And I don't know if that's, I think it's rude that they're not involved directly, but also I don't think that's going to necessarily harm the show, because if you look at D&D and how these stories are told, it's a lot about like that self-driven story. What matters to you? How are you pushing this forward? Even the game does that, right? Like, they have so many paths branched out for you to go in and try new things and figure different things out. And like, a choice you made here will affect something 20 hours later. And that's the magic of it. And so this is just saying one person is going to sit down, probably with a team of people, and say, all right, here's what I think is going to happen next. So it's professional fan fiction, basically. And that's fine. I think that's fine. But I do think it would be more polite of them to include Larian in some way, since this is like their thing.
Yeah, I guess we're, The Last of Us had Neil Druckmann there in lockstep with Craig Mazin. So I suppose we're about to find out how much of The Last of Us TV show being good was Craig Mazin and how much of it was Neil Druckmann. Our resident RPG sicko, as he calls himself.
That's me.
Understandably. Michael Hyam, your thoughts on Baldur's Gate 3 turning into an HBO show?
My bad. I don't like writing things off before they're even like close, like not even in production or like not. Yeah, it's so far off. I don't want to write it off, but there are everything I don't want from a quote unquote Baldur's Gate 3 TV show seems like it's happening. I have listen, Last of Us season 1. I think it was a solid adaptation of Last of Us Part 1.
Yeah.
And it's like it's pretty much 1-to-1. Like, it's not, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I think they did some amazing things, focusing in on specific things that were touched on in the game, and then making
the Bill and Frank
episodes
episode was
that's
absolute
like the
cinema.
one thing. Yeah, that's
Absolute
the thing
cinema.
that sticks out.
Last of Us season 2. That I can't. I have no faith in season 3. It's like the way in which they tell that story. It's like their season 2, and my friend Kenneth Shepard over at Kotaku has written extensively about this. Is that they're so afraid of silence, and like everything has to be like handed to you as the viewer. There's no nuance. There's no subtext, and I think that I have my own beef with Last of Us Part 2 and its storytelling and the messages it's trying to send, but it is a transgressive piece of media and piece of fiction, and the actions you take in that game and the opposing perspectives that you play is part of that experience and how it's told. The TV show doesn't do anything in a like it subverts that in the worst possible ways, and I think season 2 is I would say it's a failure of adapting the best parts of what made Last of Us Part 2 an interesting piece of media. So already going to it, I think that Craig Mazin has a sort of mixed, I have mixed reception of his adaptation of video game properties. Did well the first season, not so much the second. I don't have much faith in season 3, but I'm willing to give it a shot.
And it looks like it's going to end. That's not official, but that's what the buzz is right now. They're going to instead of 4 seasons, they're going to pull the plug after 3.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to go. Last of Us doesn't have to be this never ending. Like, it doesn't have to be The Walking Dead,
right?
That just never ends. Or feels like it never ends. So like Baldur's Gate 3, to focus in on Baldur's Gate 3. It's such a weird design choice. That's not what I'm looking for. It's such a weird approach that we're going to continue at the end of 3's story and go from there. It's like the D&D universe, or this particular universe is so ripe with side stories or just concepts, pieces of lore that can be branched out to explore in your own creative way. And having to base that off of directly off of 3, I think is, I would say, a mistake in approach because, like Miranda said, our attachment to our Baldur's Gate 3 playthroughs are based on those choices and the choices you make with those characters. TV shows are very, very different. And so unless they're going to, and like, so again, sorry, I'm all over the place with this one.
Okay.
I got a lot of thoughts.
It's a podcast, my friend. You got, let it rip.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, when it comes to like the choices you make, you have a certain attachment to that, and that's what D&D is all about. And then having a TV show kind of defies the point of that. And then so I think you can exist in this universe in a different branch. Something within Baldur's Gate you can explore a little bit more with more creative freedom. But also I get that Baldur's Gate 3 had reached a critical mass in a way that, 1 and 2 being CRPGs from the early 2000s just never reached. And so Baldur's Gate 3 is a household name. And by extension, Baldur's Gate is now a household name. So when you see Baldur's Gate, the TV show, it's going to have eyes regardless, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's their priority there. It's like, hey, this is a huge property that has reached a lot of people, and they probably have certain attachment to these characters, and they're going to want to see them on the big screen, whether or not that's a good idea. I think that's what they're going to want to do. And I think that they'll get a lot of viewers that way, but I think the critical reception might not be there. Again, I'm getting way ahead of myself in this, but that is just kind of how I see this playing out based on we've had so many video game adaptations that have been hit or miss. Of course, movies have been largely misses, but I think there's been TV shows, of course, Last of Us season 1, Fallout season 1, season 2, not so much, It's always the second season, man. What's up with that?
I liked season 2, not as much as the first one.
Oh, yeah.
Fallout?
I'll say Fallout season 2 is much
it.
better than Last of Us season 2 in terms of like how they carry on that legacy of those games.
We don't need to get into it, but I was just like, some of the first episodes of Fallout season 2, the first episode, good. Second episode, I was like, what is happening? This is kind of boring.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. We'll get back to it, though. I haven't finished it yet. I'm curious.
I don't know, man. I don't know if a choice-based RPG is the best. I mean, like Fallout is that too, but like that is again, like the Fallout TV show is like, hey, we're going to take this interesting universe and tell our own stories within it, using the touchstones that you recognize from it. And that's brilliant. I think that's a brilliant approach. And I would want Baldur's Gate to do that instead of like continuing directly from a story where you made choices and those stories are your own to carry. Like, I don't know. They can do some interesting things, no doubt, but I don't have faith.
I think them just saying that it's set after the game's events at least just gives them a touch point of saying, okay, these things have happened and now we're moving on. And so they still have the opportunity to just do their own side story, maybe have cameos of like 1 or 2 companions who relate to that story in a way, or like, I think there's a lot of ways. Oh, there's actually one character I would love them to do a story for, but I think she might be a companion of future Baldur's Gate, so I don't really want to get into it too much, but she's a kid who does some like really cool stuff. And I think following her, who has touchstone points with these main people, would be really cool. It's like there are little jumping off points I think they could focus on that aren't the main characters. Like, leave those stories alone. Look into those other ones. Like, what about Dame Malin? She's fantastic. She's so cool. But again, I think to your point, Michael, you do get in that problem of like, what is considered canon? It's like, no, it's just for this version of the story. It's okay. We can have different versions of different stories, so long as I think it has the same heart, same themes, like characters aren't changed like dramatically too much as to like the core of who they are. I think that's fine. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. No,
I can talk about adaptations like all day, like literally all day.
Yeah, it's interesting. Which
I know we don't have all day because we're like time.
The last, I think you mentioned this earlier too, Miranda. But the last thing I want to say is that Baldur's Gate 3 is Larian's version, like their vision of that universe. So handing that off to a completely different set of people there could be some conflicting ideas of what this universe is supposed to be about or focus on or say, and who these characters are moving forward. Because like you said, Larian's not involved in it. And so that doesn't mean it can't be, it doesn't mean the show can't be good. It's that there's probably going to be some like incongruencies between what these what these versions of their worlds are supposed to be. But I don't know. There's time. We're not going to see this for a very long time.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I guess for better or for worse, Mazin will not be adapting the Baldur's Gate 3's story 1-to-1, the way that The Last of Us was effectively a 1-to-1 adaptation. So it'll be, there's more creative freedom there. We'll see how that works. I would say I'm cautiously optimistic to start with, only because like if I look at Mazin's track record, Chernobyl, which I admit I haven't watched because it was I think when it came out, like
it's heavy.
It's just bleak, right? That's what I heard. It's just a super bleak show, and it's like I can't do that before bed. But it's supposed to be a very good show, and then The Last of Us has by and large been a show that I've really enjoyed. And then the other point in Mazin's favor here, I think, is, at least for me, is that I think he is likely, given Chernobyl, given The Last of Us, that it's again HBO, that it is likely that the Baldur's Gate show will have a significant budget in which to. Now, money does not guarantee that it's going to be a good show, but it helps. It definitely doesn't hurt to have to be able to do tell whatever stories he wants to tell, visually speaking. So I am optimistic, and we'll see what happens. But presumably he will roll onto this once The Last of Us season 3 is in the books, which as far as I know, they haven't even started shooting it yet. So there's still, I don't even know if Craig and Neil have finished writing it, but that is the next thing, and then he'll move along to Baldur's Gate. Thanks for checking out this clip from Unlocked, IGN's weekly Xbox show. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to watch the full episode at youtube.com/IGN Games. New episodes of Unlocked drop every Thursday on IGN Games, IGN.com, and your favorite podcast platforms. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.